Hello and welcome to the bike canvas painting with Cut and Paste Craft Studio. Now don't worry if you've signed up for this and you're now seeing it live on Facebook. This is not where we're painting live together. This is just so I can get it filmed and it'll be uploaded to YouTube later tonight and be ready for you all to paint tomorrow. This is the first of our larger canvas classes. It's a little bit more challenging, but I think you guys can, even tweens and teens can get through this one pretty easily. We're going to go step by step and show you how to accomplish all these different things, including the flowers and the basket weave and everything like that. If this is your first time with us, you'll notice that you have 3 brushes in your kit, a fairly wide one with a flat edge, a medium one with a flat edge, and one with a nice pointy tip for doing detail work. I will tell you which brush I'm using, but if you find that brush is too big or is not working the way you want it, you can always switch to a different size brush. Figure out what works for you. And if this is your first time using these brushes, they may be a little stiff if they're brand new, so just rub them across the top and they'll soften up. That's just sort of something that protects the brushes while they're shipping. Now you have this canvas already traced for you, and this is my sample of it. You'll notice that your background was already painted for you. That was because the design wouldn't show up once I walked you through painting the design. If you think it's a little too gray, feel free to dry brush a little white over it, avoiding the lines, and then you can soften it up if you want to. Now, your canvas is not going to look like this. You'll have much more subtle, soft lines than this on here. I went over mine with a black marker just because I knew you wouldn't be able to see it very clearly if we did it with just the traced lines. Your paints are all numbered. You've got them in little pots or little containers. I've got mine in a palette. But I'll tell you what the number of the paint is as well as the color of the paint. If you've got a couple of Q-tips around, if I put them in your bag, or if you've got some at home, these are nice to have if you just miss a little spot, get a little too much paint somewhere and you want to spit it up. The first thing we're going to paint today, we're going to start off with a medium-sized brush. Or you can use a smaller brush if you're not comfortable with the medium brush getting into these smaller spaces. But we are going to be painting with color number 1 all the parts of the bike that are blue. So it'll be these bars here, this here, and the hub, what do you call that? It's not a hubcap, it's a bumper, I guess, that you put over the top of the wheel. So go ahead, and when you're using these brushes, don't fill them all the way up. Don't go all the way up to the metal part with the paint. Just keep it a third to a half of the way up. You just want a small amount. One thing that's nice about these flat edge brushes is you can take your brush right up to the edge of a line and pull away like this, and it'll give you a really nice line. You can also, paint along here. Oh my, those markers sometimes dissolve a little bit since I just did that. But you're going to paint in all these areas. Again, you can use this smaller brush if you feel that helps you better get better control. Don't worry if you go a little too far over this line because you'll be painting that tire black, and that will cover it up nicely. Again, you won't see these black lines that I've got left here because yours isn't traced with black. I'm just doing that so you can see where I'm painting today. And you can just go straight over that. We'll cover those up later. Always remember, if you're doing some detail work that you want to brace your wrist against the canvas. You'll be painting on a flat surface. It's a lot easier, I find, but you can't see it if I paint on a flat surface. Okay, I just got a little rowdy there. Went way over the top. Take a Q-tip, put a little bit of water on it, and just swipe that up. All right. It is harder to paint upright like that. All right, all taken care of there. So now I think I'm going to switch to my smallest brush to get down this this pole that goes down here because it is thinner. And you can just, that small brush makes a nice point. Now I'm going to paint quickly here because this will be on YouTube where you guys can pause, take a break, catch up, go over something that I, painted over quickly, but I don't want to make you wait on me. Q-tips are wonderful things when you go right over the edges. Now another thing that I'm a firm believer in when painting is that when it gets awkward to paint, like, I might have to go like this to go over that curve, that's when you turn your canvas. Just turn it. And then you'll find it's a lot easier. It can be either because you can reach it better or because you can then rest your arm in a place that doesn't have wet paint on it. Because again, when you brace your wrist to get more detail, you want to make sure that you're not bracing your wrist in a puddle of wet paint. Oops, sliding back there. You can use that brush to just do a nice straight or curved line around that edge, and then it makes it easier to fill it in. And you may want to paint up far enough to cover up your lines because your lines are just graphite and the paint will cover those. I'm not going to cover mine up because they're done with marker, only again so that you can see how it's done. All right, and here's another spot that needs to be this number 1, this light blue. It's called Coastal Waters. We're using DecoArt paints here. We love them because they're made right here in Kentucky. All right, and that is as much as we need for the blue part. Wash out your brush. Whenever you're doing these projects, make sure that when you're not using your brush, you are always keeping it in the bowl. Once it's got paint on it, it needs to be kept in the bowl so that you're not gonna, the paint won't dry out on it. And check and see if you've got any little spots that need a little touching up. And again, if I move too fast, you just hit pause. All right, now wash and dry that pointy brush because we're going to add some little accents here on our bike, and we're going to do this in sort of a what we call a dry brush fashion, which it means you're going to load a little paint on the brush, but then you're going to wipe it off. All right, so we're using white. If your brush isn't formed to a nice point, use your fingers to kind of bring it to a point, and then you're only going to use a tiny amount like that. All right, and then kind of wipe it off on your palette so you just have a small amount of paint there. And then we're just going to give some white highlighting to it, and just not all the way along. You're just going to do like a little streak here and a little streak there and a little streak there. And then you'll probably need to reload your brush, wipe it off again, and give yourself a little more highlighting along the other edges. I'm going to have to turn because that is awkward for me. A little bit there, a little bit there. And it's okay that you're doing this right on top of the wet paint. There we go. All right, you are done with that blue color for right now. We are going to go back a little later and highlight the handlebars with it. But keep that brush that you just had the white paint on. We're going to go ahead and do the handlebars. The grips here will be black, but this part here we're going to do in white. And again, you just go ahead and cover up your lines. Mine won't cover as well since they're black, but yours should cover up pretty well. Now, I've got a little too much paint on my brush. You'll notice if you get big clumps of paint, that's just too much paint on your brush. Now don't worry too much about that. We're going to, the edges being perfect, and the white I don't think shows up really well against this gray, but that's okay because we're going to highlight the handlebars a little bit later with some blue paint. All right, then your next job is going to be with your medium brush with the flat edge. We're going to use black paint. And again, don't go too far up on there. You don't want way too much paint. And we're going to paint this tire here. And you can use the edge of that brush to give a nice smooth edge there. Remember to just move slowly. When you're doing a fine edge like that, just paint slowly. Sometimes I get in a rush, and that's when I always end up making a big mess. And then spread out your paint. And remember, you can put that flat edge right up against a straight line, and that'll give you a good chance of getting a nice, perfect straight line there. I know I didn't finish down here, but that was feeling awkward to me, so I'm going to wait and turn my canvas in a little bit. Keep your wrist braced, and that'll give you better control. When your wrist is braced, then you're moving your brush with your fingers. If it's not braced, you're moving your brush with your whole arm, and that can feel uncomfortable. We can go again with the flat edge right up against it. I'm going to take that little bit off with my Q-tip. All right, now I'm going to turn to give myself a better angle on this. And then I'm going to use that flat edge again. And see, I've got my wrist braced, so I'm really just rotating my arm, and that gives me a lot more control. Get that little spot right there that I missed. And then I think I'm going to have to turn again. Let's see. I think this might do it. Nope. It's going to have to be this way. Sorry about that. Again, you turn where you need to. You work with this canvas as what feels comfortable to you. Now I'm switching back and forth between sliding my brush and lining up and pulling. That's because when I get into a spot where I just don't feel comfortable sliding, I can just take the flat edge against the line and pull it away. All right, then look back, see if you've got any clumps. You don't want big clumps of paint. And then, oh, I got a little spot there where I missed. Just touch him up a little bit. You can always go back with a black marker in the end if you want to line things up. I've got some clumps right there. You probably can't see them. All right, and then I would go ahead and wipe off as much of the black paint as you can, just so you don't get your bowl full of black paint, your bowl of water full of black paint. And then, oh, you know what we didn't do? We didn't do the handlebar, and that is black. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to switch to the smaller brush, and I'm going to put a coat of black paint on that handlebar. Now, anytime you all feel the need, if you're worried about wet paint and smearing things, just go ahead and go find your blow dryer and dry up the paint with your blow dryer. I'm not going to blow dry right now because I don't want you to have to listen to it, but it can make it easier to move on to a next step. You know, if you're worried about smearing the black on this bike tire, you can just go ahead and dry it with a blow dryer, and then you don't have to worry about smearing it with your hand. I will be putting a second coat of white on that handlebar later as it dries. I think you can tell it doesn't show up super well. Then our next step, and I find this step just really fun, is we're going to do this basket weave on the basket of the bike. Let me show you this. I'm going to bring it up a little closer. You can probably see there's a lot of variation in there. That's because we've got two different colors of brown, and we also have some white. And we're going to kind of double and triple load our brush to get that look as we're painting. And so we're going to be using this medium brush because I think that's the perfect width for the basket weave look. And I'm going to show you this on a paper towel first so you can see how I'm doing it. I'll just put it right up here. You've got three colors in there that we're going to use. Number 4, which is your darker brown, and number 5, which is a lighter kind of brown, and then white. And what I recommend is if you've got like one of the cups, one of the lids off the cups that your paint comes in, or if you've got a little plastic plate or paper plate or something like that, take a scoop of the darker brown and put it out here. I'm going to wash and dry that brush. Take a scoop of the lighter brown and put it right there. Wash off my brush. And then take a scoop of the white because you do want to keep your white clean for later, and just put it right there. I think I needed a little more of that dark brown, so I'm going to get more of that out. And then you've got some of it, a little of each right there. So what I'm going to do when I double load my brush is I'll put most of the brush into the brown, so about 3/4 of it has brown on it, and then I'm going to take just a tiny bit of white and put it in one corner. And then when I make my brush strokes, I'm going to do it here on the paper towel first just to show you. I'm going to go up, and then I'm going to go over. And you'll see a little bit. It doesn't show as well on the paper towel as it does as it will on your canvas, but you're going to see a little bit of the white and a little bit of the brown. And that will be, we will go across the basket like that, all right? And you'll keep reloading as you need it. So, and you're probably your brush stroke's probably going to be, a quarter of the way up the basket. You could do little tiny brush strokes and get more of them in there, or I'm doing a more open weave. So I'm going to load up brown on my brush and then just tip the very edge of my brush in white. And then I'm going to go down and across. And then I think I want to get a little of that lighter brown in there too. So I'm going to triple load. I'm just going to touch a little edge, and then I'm going to come right here and go down and across. And I'm going to get a little more of that light and a little more of the white. And this is very rough. You don't have to be perfect. Yours doesn't have to look just like mine. We're just kind of doing these shapes, and we're going across. All right? So that gives us the basics of our basket weave. And I'm still thinking I'm not getting quite enough of this light brown, so I'm going to keep adding a little more of the lighter brown. And then I'm going to go across the top of this one and then come up here like that. Across the top and up. Across the top and up. Doesn't it give that kind of a cool basket weave look to it? I'm really enjoying this technique. All right, and then again, load up your brush, figure out how much you want of each color, get what you like. You can always blend over it. I ended up doing about 1/3 of the basket, didn't I? Okay, up and over. Let's go up a little higher. And up. Oh, I got a little too much white there. And over. And up and over. Up and over. I'm losing the look of that dark brown there. I need to get a little of that back on. So then back across and up. Across and go there, across and there. And if you were losing the bit of the brown like I was, you can just go back and add a little of that brown in. I'm going to actually get another scoop of brown out there because I've mixed mine up too much. You can do that too. Add a little brown. And we're just going to kind of finish it off here. I'll go up all the way and over. Oop, lost my white. And up. It's the white that really gives it that look, I think. All the way up to the line and over, up to the line and over. Now I see a few little spots where I've missed. So I'm just going to add a little paint to those places right there. Like right there. Maybe a touch of white there. Didn't come across here enough or there enough. All right. So you've got kind of a mix of different colors. And, you know, if you missed a little, like you felt like it was too brown there and you didn't get enough white to kind of define the different lines, you can do that. And there you go. Now again, you can stop here and blow dry if you want, or just keep moving along with me. This next step, we're going to use number 4, the darkest brown, with our very fine point brush, and we're just going to outline it. Because we probably, if you were like me, got a little crazy and some of the edges just, you know, weren't even with each other. And that just kind of finishes off the basket for you. Oh, I got a little crazy there. And straight up this side. That filled in that little hole I had there. And right along that side. Okay, we'll add a little flare to that basket there. All right. And again, you may want to stop at this point and give that basket a good blow dry before you go on and do anything else. I think my tires on my car, the tires on my bike there are getting pretty dry. So I think I can go ahead and do the spokes. I did not trace these spokes for you, okay? They don't have to be perfect. You've got a couple of options for how you can do them. You can do them with a black marker, or you can do them with your fine point brush and a little bit of black paint. I kind of prefer the black marker. If your black marker is new, make sure you wake it up, you know, shake it a little bit, and then press it down on a paper towel. Now, it is important that when you're drawing with them, you do not press down hard because you'll end up with a glob of ink there that you don't want. Yep, my black is nice and dry. I'm going to go this is going to be my center point, all right? So my spokes are going to come out from this center point. So I'm going to go straight up from that one, and then I need to line up and go straight down, all right? And there's one. And then I'm going to, cut it in quarters. So my other one needs to go pretty much straight from here and then straight out from there. And then just divide each one up so that's like wedges of a pie. And see, they're not perfect. They don't have to be perfect. Now this one, see, is going to be kind of under here. He's going to start right about there because this part will hide it. And then this one will kind of come out there. Now those look a little unfinished to me, and we will add a little more paint to them later. A little white paint actually to give them a little accent. You can also go over these little lines right here with a black, and then of course we'll go back later and add a little something to those too. All right. Oh, here we go. Now I think my white paint is dry enough here that I'm ready to put a second coat on it on the handlebar. So I'm using my tiny brush again, and I'm going to just get a little second coat. I put too much paint on that brush. You'll know you've got too much paint on your brush when you can see big globs of it sitting there. So spread that out nice and smooth. Or wipe your brush off and stay away from that fresh ink. That's what I ran into there. All right, I think that white shows up a lot better now. All right. We are going to do a little more accenting on the handlebars and on the tires, and some accents on the spokes, but I'm going to wait a little bit, so we're going to move on to doing our flowers. I did a total of 5 of these, I don't know what you want to call them, roses, peonies, big poofy pink flowers, whatever it is you want to call them. I did 5, and I started out by kind of marking on my canvas about where I want my 5 flowers to be, and I'm just doing a little dot of this dark pink, which is number 6. I know it probably looks like reddish to you, but it's actually a raspberry pink. And so I'm just going to take my thin brush with a little bit of this. Let's see if you can see where we had those. I had one that was just a little bit up from here. That's the center of my flower. This one was a little bit lower and over to the edge. This one was over here, closer to that B. And then I had one kind of a little higher up in the middle, and then one right about there. So that just tells me where I'm going to start my flowers and how I'm going to progress with them. Now, again, I'm going to let me get a fresh paper towel and I'll show you the technique that we do to make these flowers. It's really just a dot and a whole bunch of C's, okay? So I'll put it beside here. You'll start with a dot like that with your small brush. And, I don't know about the size of the nail on your pinky finger maybe. And then you're going to start doing C's around the edge of it. So there's a C, there's a C. C is in the letter C. I got 3 there. I want 5. You want an odd number, okay? So that's what you're doing to start with. You're making a dot in the center and putting 5 C's around the outside. And then this is very loose how we do this. We're going to keep building on this flower until we like it. which means you may be adding layer after layer after layer of paint, and that's okay. We're going to start small because he's going to get bigger. So I've done those 5 C's, and I'm going to kind of fill them in like that. Oh, I kind of lost definition on my 5th. There we go, there's 5. And then I'm not going to wash my brush. I'm just going to kind of dry it off. And then I'm going to get this lighter pink, which is number 7. It's called Flamingo. And without drying my paints or anything like that, I'm just going to kind of go around the outside of those C's and make them bigger. And my paint will kind of smear together, and that's okay. And I'm just going to go out like that. There we go. And then I'm going to come out with number 6 again, the darker pink. And I'm going to build this even bigger. This flower's got to have lots and lots of layers to him. And if you start to lose the definition of your C's, just kind of go back in there and repaint them. Force them to be 5 petals again. All right. And then I think I'm going to do another set with number 7. Get him nice and big there. All right. And these look really clumpy right now, but we're going to work on them a little bit. Wash your brush off and then dry it off really well. You want a nice dry brush for this. And then just kind of go in there, see where that dark pink is, just sort of blend him a little bit. Make him look a little smoother into that pink. And then we're going to wash and dry our brush. And we're going to start adding a little definition with the white. A little bit of white, a little bit of white. And then we'll go again, maybe on this outer edge of the pink. See how it's just kind of blending it and making it lighter and lighter and lighter? Getting a little too much pink on there. I'm just going to keep blending it. I want a little more white on that edge so it kind of is defined against the edge of the basket. And again, with my dryish brush, I'm going to go in where the white looks a little harsh and just kind of soften it in there. And then I want to go into the very center and add just some tiny little amounts of white, just a tiny amount in my brush. Just to give that edge, that center there, just a little more definition. And you can always do the same thing. I think I've lost a little of the darkness out there further out, so I'm going to use just a tiny bit of darker pink and just blend it out here. All right. That looks pretty close to what I did the first time. I got my edges a little whiter this time. I wanted I ended up with a little more white paint toward the outside. That's okay. You just keep the flowers the color that you want them to be. So now we're just going to go in and do the same thing 4 more times. Start with our darker pink, make the blob a little bigger, make the 5 petals, We'll go in with our lighter pink. And then I'm going to go back with this darker pink again. Oh, I got a little too much on my brush. If you feel like you've loaded up too much, just wipe it off. This flower may stay a little bit darker, I think, just to give it some variety. I'm going to do another layer with my light pink. And don't worry about these flowers touching each other, because we're going to be adding a lot more flowers to this design. And so that'll fill in the spots. All right, now I'm going to start with my white on this one. So just blending a little white into that outer edge. And I'm going to go back in and give little white accents here and there. I think I need to blend a little bit here. Just soften it a little bit. If your brush is kind of dry, you can just sort of soften some of those lines. I think he's missing a little white over here. There we go. That's two. Now this guy got a little big, so he ran into my flower here. I'll kind of build it up a little higher. Make that initial dot one of the circles. I mean one of the petals. There's 2, 3, 4. Whoops, I ran out of room. Let's do a fifth one right there. I'm going to go back with darker pink again. Now, as you come down close to this flower that's beneath it, decide whether this flower is going to be behind the one below or in front of it. So if it's in front of it, just paint over it. If it's behind it, paint right up to it and stop. So I'm deciding this one's going to be behind it. So I'm going to go right there and not paint over it. And again, we're going to be using lots of other colors and other flowers to fill in any spots. So don't worry that they need to be right next to each other. We're going to put some leaves and some flowers that kind of hang down. All right, then I'm going to go in here with a little bit of this white. Kind of blend that out to the edges. I might just take it right over the edge of that handlebar right there, but then stop as I come down. If you find you're getting a little bit of pink paint in your white, don't worry, just dip in one corner of the white, then the rest of your white in your container will stay nice and clean. Let's give a little detail right there. And then again, I'm going to dry off my brush and just blend some of these colors in together. Oh, I like that. I think we're doing well here. This is flower number 4. Dry off my brush, move on to the lighter pink. Now again, you could have a lot more pale pink to this. You could bring a lot more white into it. You could make it more of a white flower with a pink blush to it if you wanted. I'm losing you there. I got smart this time and I put, ooh, that petal got big. And I put tape on the table. I know in theater, I think they call it spike tape, so that I know where my palette is supposed to stay. So as I start leaning on it, I know where to pull it back to so that you all don't lose focus on this. And again, if you come in and see me painting this and it makes you worried because you thought you were missing it, I am just filming it here right now on Facebook so that later I can upload it to YouTube. I'm hoping soon we'll have a webcam and then we can film directly to YouTube. But my webcam is currently on a slow boat from Hong Kong. So as soon as that gets here, Melissa and I will get set up for more filming. All right, I'm going to go back in with my dry brush and just soften some of that. I don't want to soften some of the white too much because I want to leave some accents, but I think I was getting a little, there we go. All right, and we have one last flower. And this is the one, this markup here is a bee. I promise he'll look a little cuter than that. The first time I painted him, he began to look like one of those, what do they call them, the murder hornets that they're now talking about arriving from Asia in Washington, I think it was. So mine looked a little bit like a murder hornet, but this, today we will make sure he looks more like a friendly bumblebee. I know bumblebees don't sound all that friendly, but that's okay. Now this flower is going to run into both of my other flowers. I think I'm going to have it paint over this one and under that one. But you decide how you want that to go. Back again with my darker, it's actually called raspberry. And then back to flamingo. Let's see. Oh, that's right. I'm going over this one, but behind that one. And you notice how your flowers look really not like flowers. when you first start on them. And it's after you start to blend and add and, you know, put in the little white highlights, that then you begin to actually see the flower in it. All right, now I'm going to take my dryish brush and just sort of blend those so that my brush strokes aren't showing so much. But I think this guy needs another, I think he needs to come out further with a little more of that white. So I'm just going to paint on a border of white like that. And then I'm going to take my dry brush and just kind of bring my pink out into it. You can do a lot of things with paint while it's still dry. Still dry. Well, it's still wet. But I am losing the definition right here, so we'll just go over it with a little pink and then a little highlighty white. There we go. I think I'm liking that. All right, again, this is a good point for you guys to go blow dry. What I'm going to do is stop working on the flowers for a minute to give them a little time to dry, and I'm going to do a little accenting in other spots. We accented the, remember we did little white accents along here, and if yours didn't show up enough, you can always add a little more white to them. I'm finding that mine just didn't show up enough. And then you can add some little highlights to your tire too. Just, you know, right along there. Now, how much you highlight your tire is totally up to you. I went a little heavy this time, but hey, you can do it any way you want. Now, we're going to take this really tiny brush, and these spokes look very drawn with a black marker, don't they? So what we're going to do is really, really carefully draw a white line with your white, with your finest pointy brush. You're going to draw a white line just on the side. And always remember, if you do it on this side of this line, do it on that side of this line and this line and this line too. And so you only want a tiny amount of paint on that brush. Now, if you had a white paint marker, you could do this with a white paint marker, but I don't have good luck with white paint markers. So it's not going to show up a whole lot because you've got this gray background. And you're just going to keep doing this along. It just kind of makes the spoke look almost reflective. So you're doing it right next to that black line. And if you go over it, just take your Q-tip or your finger and swipe that off. Can you see up close how I did that? And again, turn your canvas as you need to. Yep, I got a little close to the black line there. And keep turning. Well, I'm going to have to come back over here, because otherwise I'm going to stick my hand in my pretty pink flowers. Oh, I went on the wrong side of that one. Well, if you do that, just take it off. There we go. That's what I get for turning so many times. And again, you can always go back over that when you're done to make your, if you go a little too over your black lines, let them dry up and then you can go back. And then I would do the same thing right next to these wires that are holding your basket onto the bike. All right. Boy, we are moving along here. Now I'm going to add just a little bit of color accent to the edge. I'm going to go back to number 1, that coastal blue water that we did the rest of the bike in. And I'm just going to use a small amount. In fact, I'm going to wipe some of that paint off my brush because I just want a light amount. See how I'm just kind of highlighting the edge right there. There we go. And I think that just gives that bike handle a little more definition. The white shows up better against the gray there. All right, this is where we get to the fun point of painting these flowers. We're going to start with color number 8, which is your one and only bright yellow. And you're going to make it looks like a bunch of yellow grapes. Do you see these right here and right here? So you're going to start out, we'll start right here. Maybe what we're doing is making dots with the wrong end of our paintbrush. If you have a super teeny tiny brush, you can do it that way, but I like it better with the wrong end of my paintbrush. So you're going to do about 4 dots across and then maybe 3, and then just make it kind of peter down to where you're just getting 1. And the dots can overlap, and I'll show you. You just dip your paintbrush, the wrong end of your paintbrush, into your paint. And then I'm going to start right about here, and I'm going to do about 3 or 4 across. Now you'll notice you go across, your dots get smaller, so you may need to reload. And then I'll come down to maybe about 3. And then I just kind of want this to hang down like that. And then we are going to accent this with a lighter yellow. But we're going to mix that yellow, and I don't want to mix it yet because I want to finish doing these dots. I feel like that one needs to come down one more like that maybe. And then I'm going to do one right here, and I'm going to have him kind of, you know, arch out like this. So we'll do about 3 or 4 up like that. And you just keep loading your brush and just kind of fill in your shape like that. I think he's hanging a little too far out, so we'll come down like there. And then I think we're going to do another one right up here by the top of these flowers. Remember to keep loading up. And you also want to be really careful where you put your hands, because these dots take forever to dry. So you don't want to rest your elbow on those dots and get paint on them. So what I'm going to do is kind of turn. Now you've got to sort of remember, you know, what direction you're going in. You don't want it sticking up in the way. So I'll go up 4 dots. And then I'm going to have a little cluster that's just right here, hanging between these two flowers, because we're going to sort of fill in the spaces of these flowers. And I think I want another one just sort of peeping out here. He's not going to have a lot of shape to him because he's really covered up by these other flowers, but he's just going to be a cluster of yellow right about there. All right. And then let's do the last one. Let's see, right about here. All right, I think that's enough little yellow flowers for now. So what I'm going to do is take a scoop of my white paint over here and just mix him into a corner of my yellow because I want a lighter yellow. It's not going to be super light, and you don't have to mix up all the yellow. You can just mix kind of a corner of it. But I've got more of a sort of a banana color now. And then I'm going to go back in with the wrong end of my paintbrush into that lighter yellow that I made. And I'm going to go just with a line of dots along the outside edge, just to highlight that a little bit. Get another one right along here, maybe bring it down to the very end. Maybe fill this one in a tiny bit. He just needed a little more dotting. You could have a few little lighter dots around here and a few right along in there. All right. There are our pretty yellow dangling flowers. If I knew flowers better, I could tell you what they were. But to me, they're just pretty, I don't know, maybe drooping goldenrod. All right, now we are going to do the exact same thing with purple. Number 9 is your purple color. I think you can tell why I didn't give you 2 purples and 2 yellows. I'm making you mix because we were running out of space for paint. All right, so just start, pick a spot. You might want to start kind of over here. I'm just going to have a little bit of one hanging right there. And then one right kind of coming under this flower there. And then I'm going to have one sort of cascading in between here. Try not to get too close to my pink dot, my yellow dots. And then I want to have one that kind of fits in between these two. And then I think we need a little up in here, just some little bits of purple that got in there. All right. Oh, I see another little spot where we might put a touch of purple. I've got a little space. Now, you may not have this space, Your dots go where you need them to, but I'm going to put a little bit right in that little space there. Now we're going to, again, take a little scoop of your dark purple, and then take a little scoop of your white, and just mix them together. And then on this, I kind of just softened up the dark purple with the lighter purple. Just, you know, adding a little bit here and there. I kind of went right in the middle with these. All right. I think our basket of flowers is getting very pretty. I almost said pretty, pretty. That would be kind of silly. All right, so here's where we are. This is where we've done, where we've gotten all of our flowers. We're going to start filling in with leaves. And again, I'm going to show you how to do them, but this is going to be where you have to fit them where they seem to fit for you. And the nice thing about these pointy brushes is that they're very good for making leaf shapes. I need to find a clean paper towel. I've used up so many. You've got two shades of green, this lighter one that's called number 10 and the darker one that is number 11. And you're going to be using both of those. I actually put the wrong color in number 11. Hang on. Good thing I'm here where all the paint is. I went one shade of green too dark. All right, that's better. So you're going to start with the number 10 color green, load it on your brush, and then the technique is to start by touching just the tip of your brush to the canvas. And then as you stroke up, you're going to press down and then let up. And that will give you a little bit of a leaf shape. Now I want my leaf to be wider, so I'm going to load a little more paint, point, press down, curve back toward that center, and then lift up. And that will give me that nice pointed edge that I want. And I'm just going to do several of these around my canvas, and then I'm going to do all the leaves that I want in this color, and then I'm going to come back and add some darker accents and some darker leaves. So point, press down, and then lift up. And I want to do the same thing here, press down and lift up. I like the little curl on that. I think we need one right here. And we definitely got to get some down here. And of course you can paint right over that brown. And if it doesn't cover enough, you just let that dry and you'll come back to it later and add another coat to it. Now I'm going to have to turn my canvas to get another leaf. I want this one to be kind of hanging down. And then maybe we'll just have a little one right here, right above where the handlebar goes. There we go. Now I'm going to switch, wash and dry my brush. Oh, I'm getting too far away from you. And go to my second color of green. And I'm going to add some other little leaves to accent right there. I think I might make them smaller. So, you know, this one just right like that. And then I'm going to add just a tiny bit of this darker paint, just a tiny stripe right up the center of that leaf, just to give him some texture. Let's get a little one right here, press down, squish it, and there we go, and add a little there. And you can always go back over these leaves with a second coat of green if you need to. And have this one kind of overlap a little bit. All right, and then I think we need some just sort of grassy greenery. I'll show you what I mean. See how we have just little bits of the fern-like greenery coming out. We're going to do that with our pointy brush. You don't want way too much on there. And of course, you know, it'll tend to sort of flop down. So we'll just flop it down like this. That one got a little wide, but you know what? That's okay. There we go. Now, we need to kind of fill in. There are some areas in between things where there's just spaces, okay? So take your small brush, go with the wrong end of it, and just start filling in some green. And you can use either color of green, you can use both greens, and just start doing some little dots anywhere that you see that there are some spaces. Just to give it that filler greenery. And your spots will be different than mine because your flowers are going to be different from mine. All right, we are good and filled in. Now, before we move on to the bee, on this painting, we had some petals of flowers along here and along here that just were falling off the bike as we rode. So I'm going to use the pointy end of my smallest brush, and I'm going to pick a little of my my lighter pink, number 7, and I'm just going to, from about here down, do some little falling petals. Maybe a few fell over here as well. And then I'm going to switch to my purple, because a few of those petals just were randomly falling off as well. And then we had some of the yellow bits falling down as well. And this is up to you. If you don't like that look, don't do it. But I thought it added a little fun color. Oh, wait, you know what? There was one more spot. I'm going to go back with that pink up here, flying away as we rode so fast. Okay. Now we're going to tackle this bee. All right. The first time I painted him, you'll have to see. This was my first attempt at painting him, and he looks a little bit like a murder hornet. So we're gonna be a little kinder this time and make him a little nicer. So first off, you're gonna paint the body of the bee white, and that's just so that we can get some good yellow on there. Yellow doesn't like to cover over other colors, so we'll just paint some white on there. A little crazy there on the edge. All right. And then we're going to paint his face black. All right, and then I know I told you I wasn't going to make you listen to me blow dry, but I really want this white to be dry before we do any more work there. So I'm going to very quickly blow dry it. It's a good chance for you to go blow dry yours too. All right, sorry you had to hear that, but there we go. Oh, and while we've got some white out, we never did do the highlight on the bike handlebar. Just a little. There we go. That's all he needs. Now, you've got your bee. So we're going to start doing some yellow stripes on him. All right. So the first stripe is going to be right up next to his head. And then we'll do one a little lower. And then a little lower. Wash that brush nice and clean, and then we're going to go back with our black. And again, you could stop here and blow dry. Just use that very fine edge. Now, if you wanted to, you could paint his whole body yellow. I'm getting a little wild there. And let it dry really well, and then go back with your black marker and draw your stripes if you wanted to. And then I'm going to come down. I'm going to give him a little point here because, you know, he's a bee. He's got a pointy bit there. And then he needs a little bit of an antenna up here. Just there's his two little antennas. And then if you want to, because I find this a little hard to control with the brush to get them that tiny, is just do his little legs right there, landing on that flower. Now, if yours didn't get that close to the flower, you know, you could see on my other one, my bee had not landed on my flowers because I had it in a little bit different place. But that's okay. You have him land wherever you want to. Now, we're going to go back to white and our tiny brush because this bee needs some wings. Now, I did not draw him wings for you. I want you to, it's going to be very sheer. You're going to use your small brush, but don't put a ton of paint on it, and wipe it off on your paper towel if you need to. And then just right about the point above his first black stripe, just brush make a very light sheer wing like that. You don't want it to be too bright white. And then kind of overlap it. Okay, I don't have quite enough white on there. All right, that wing got way too big, so we're gonna have to make this one a little bigger to go with it. Okay, let's see if we get up here close. Can you see the wings on my bee there? They're very sheer and very light. Then with the tip of it, you want to give some little a sense of motion, okay? First you go, you're going to keep your brush nice and pointy, and you're going to just do some, you know, little swipes out here as if those wings are moving. And then we're going to go with our tiny brush again, and you want the teeniest, tiniest amount of black paint on the end, because we don't want this to be super dark. And we're just going to give some little bit of veining right there, kind of coming up in his wings like that. Then again, wrong end of the paintbrush, go up here, and you want this dot to be really small, so don't press the wrong end of your paintbrush all the way down onto your bee. You want to press it down just a little bit. Oh, my eyeball got a little big, but that's how you're going to do it. All right, now if you are feeling like an artist today, and you should be, give a little signature down here somewhere in the corner. You know, you've got your marker if you want it. You could even, you know, flip it over and write something on the back, maybe on the here, you know, quarantine painting. So you remember 2020, that's what you were doing. And that's the end of our canvas painting today. I hope you all enjoyed it. I'm going to show you what I'm going to be doing next week. This is next week's canvas. This cute little gnome with his butterfly, his flowers, and his mushrooms. We'll be using the same kind of techniques on those flowers. So I hope you'll join us then, and thanks so much for painting with me today.